When can I finally dissolve this limited liability company? When can I finally dissolve this limited partnership? The project's done. The property's gone. Maybe the property's been foreclosed on. Why keep the entity open? And here's the truth. Dissolving too early can potentially, I say potentially, expose you personally. And most people don't realize why. So the reality is, a lot of people think that once you dissolve a limited liability company, the liabilities disappear. But that isn't necessarily the truth. And almost every major state, Texas, Delaware, Georgia, North Carolina, claims survive dissolution. And those aren't the only states. Lots of states, those claims survive. That means that somebody can still sue your company even after it's been dissolved. And if there's no active company left, no assets, no bank account, plaintiffs don't typically just give up. They go straight after you, the person that controlled and or owned and or was managing that entity. They argue alter ego allegations. They argue improper distributions. They might argue that you dissolve the company too early to avoid obligations, and that's where that danger is. So even in real estate deals, claims often pop up, you know this, long after the project ends. Contractor disputes, property management issues, investor complaints, K-1 disputes, warranty or repair issues, and especially lender claims, even if there's a foreclosure or a workout, unless there's an absolute release negotiated in connection with that particular transaction. Just because the property is gone or the asset that the entity owned is gone does not mean that the lender or other people that entered into contracts with that entity are gone. Deficiencies, guarantee claims, indemnities, these are often claims that surface months or even years later. And so if the entity is gone, the lender sometimes even looks at straight after the individuals that were controlling or managing that entity. So what to do? Why keep the LLC alive? Because the entity still protects you, even in it's no longer operating. So three key things I want you to think about. One, the entity remains the proper target typically for any lawsuit, not you individually. When I say you individually, you, the person that put the entity together, you, the individual that is controlling or managing that entity. Two, it preserves the corporate formalities, keeping that entity alive and active. Courts look for when they're deciding whether to pierce the veil or to go after or allow a plaintiff to go after the individuals that controlled or managed the entity. And three, it protects you from other claims, investor claims or third-party claims, because the entity, not the individual manager, is the party that signed the documents. Remember, your limited liability company or your entity is often a liability firewall. So don't shut it off too soon unless you're confident associated with some of the risk factors. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't want to keep paying for a dead company. But here's the good news, right? You don't have to necessarily keep paying lots of costs associated with this. You can streamline those costs into a simple, low-cost approach, keeping the registered agent, filing the minimum annual report, maintaining potentially a tiny bank balance, not having active employees or no operations, and only keeping potentially, if you have insurance, tail coverage allowed or active, keeping that. These are very minimal costs compared with what the liability shield is actually doing for you. So when is it safe to dissolve? Usually after the major statute of limitations have run. These are contract claims, tort claims, investor claims, and especially lender deficiency periods. For most clients, this means probably a couple years. It could even mean 3, 4 to 6 years after the last period of real risk. If you're unsure whether your entity is ready to dissolve, you need to reach out, right? So every circumstance is potentially unique, and the states in which your entity is formed or operating may operate differently from other states. So we review this for clients all the time, and we can tell you whether it's potentially safer to wind down or at least identify some of these pinch points for you to actually take a look at so that you could stay protected, stay informed, and let your entity keep working for you even after the deal is done. Hopefully this is well helpful for you, for those of you that love and are looking at deals. Godspeed.